My family did experience some hardships while in Regina, trying to escape poverty. One of my siblings went missing in Regina. Fortunately, we found my sibling. But I remember being very young and putting up missing signs around Regina. I don't talk about that much, but that's something that was really hard. After that, I moved to L'Orange, and I spent the next 6 years of my life there, and I met some really great people, great friends, great elders, great mentors. After that, I then moved to Rosthern, and that is where my mother got a job working for Batoche National Historic Site. And that's where I truly became in touch with my culture, with my Métis side. That's where I became in touch with my dancing. It's where I met Elder Maria Campbell, and she mentored me for three summers, and still continues to do so once in a while. Kim Anderson, Christy Belcourt, Neil McLeod. Growing up around these artists, their passions was just naturally passed on to me. And I'd like to backtrack a little bit though, but Batoche that's where I truly became in touch with my culture. It's where I started learning about my ancestry, about the 1885 resistance, about Almighty Voice, about Louis Riel, about Gabriel Dumont. And that has inspired me to this day. Knowing that they're rooting for me, knowing that they fought for me, and I will continue to do so for the unborn. That's a bit about who I am. Currently, right now, I'm a youth support worker with the Lac La Ronge Indian Band. And as some of you are aware, back in October, the Lac La Ronge Indian Band went through a suicide crisis. 4 young girls between the ages of 10 and 14 committed suicide, and to the best of my knowledge, there was at least 70 more attempts within the community that month. So shortly after, I was hired. But what really motivates me is that 3 weeks after that crisis, those 4 young girls took their lives, I myself had a child born. Her name is Natalia. And that's what really put things into perspective to me. That made me go, holy cow. I'm not just, fighting, for myself and for my peers, but for this young child, for my child. In terms of, reconciliation, what I would like to see, education. It is the most important thing. There are a couple elementary schools in my tri-community area. And if you drew a line between one and the other, there'd probably be about 3 kilometers. You'd have to go through some bush. The kids on reserve get 40% less what the kids in the village get. And why do they get 40% less? Why would my daughter get 40% less than those kids who are only a few kilometers away? And it's because they're First Nations. It's because they're Indigenous. They're Indians. Seeing that, that's my motivation. And working with those children. This past winter and spring, I had the pleasure and the opportunity to bring my skills and my talents to those youth. And I got to form a little square dance group. It was a lot of fun. So that would be one thing. And also, I touched on this a little bit earlier with some senators, is the inclusion of First Peoples in the economy and the development of our own economies, something that's not based on resource extraction, something where we're not damaging our lands, not harming our fish, not harming our waters, not harming the plants. That's a big one for me, and part of that ties in with education, because in order to have a robust economy, a diversified economy, we need education. It is absolutely key, and it is absolutely critical. And also increased mental health services. You know, better partnerships. Provinces need to work with individual nations. The federal government needs to step up more and do more. It just blows my mind how far some of our youth have to go to get the proper services. How far some of our elders have to go to get some just basic services. And those roads up there aren't the best. We got big trucks hauling uranium from northern Saskatchewan, hauling them down south, and they really tear up the roads. And I think really looking and examining those corporations that are operating in our territories, that are generating profits from our territories, making sure they're paying their fair share. I can think of one company in particular in the territory that I work in that does not. And further down the road, you know, I would like to see the development of our own economies. You know, in 20 years, where do I see myself sitting? Hopefully amongst you, or in the other house. But I think really just right now my main focus is the youth, nurturing, listening, and advocating anytime I can. So I'll open the floor to some questions now if anybody has any.
Thank you, Modeste.
Thank you.
Well, I'm from Saskatchewan, and Lac La Ronge First Nation is actually a fairly prosperous First Nation, is it not? Could you comment on, you were talking about development in economies and you know how that's important, but yet economies that are environmentally friendly.
Well, Lac La Ronge is very successful, but you know, there's other communities in northern Saskatchewan. There's Dene communities, there's Wollaston, there's Fond du Lac, there's Black Lake, and those are very isolated communities. Unemployment, and even in La Ronge too. Just even down south, it's not where it should be. It's when you compare it to the national average, it's just not where it should be. And what was the other part of the question? Sorry, I couldn't really hear you.
Just in terms of developing economies, and now you've mentioned the more isolated, remote communities. How do you envision those communities becoming more self-reliant, given that they are remote and isolated? Do you have some insights into that?
Absolutely. La Ronge held this great program. It was called NORTEP. And
yes. NORTEP?
NORTEP. It's going to be shut down. It's shut down now.
That's right.
But what NORTEP was so if you lived in northern Saskatchewan for half your life for 10 years, regardless of your ethnicity or if your status or not, Aboriginal, non-Aboriginal, you got to go to the school for free. And the idea behind the program was to improve retention rates in regards to teachers, right? So, you know, education would be